Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there. Welcome to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here, and I think we've got a great program today. We're continuing our journey through the 12 steps, and some of our New Life counselors and coaches and life recovery leaders are contributing. And on today's show, we're going to look at Step 2. Alena Alsruhe is our host today, and she's a New Life counselor and coach, and she's also a certified brain health coach. That's pretty great. Well, I love Alena. She is so powerful in all the things that she does, and here she's going to explore Step 2 and her story of challenges in her marriage and how recovery helped them in their journey. And I think a lot of people really don't buy into the fact that the 12 steps can help every problem and every situation. Listen to Alena. She's great.
Welcome. Today I'm going to talk about Step 2 and how it's one of the most life-changing decisions that you could ever make. It is a choice of hope. Step 1 was admitting that you're powerless over whatever you are facing. And for me, I was powerless to help save my marriage. I will tell you a little bit more about that as we continue the video, but I was just undone and had no idea what to do next. Step 2 is admitting that there is a power, God, greater than ourselves, that can restore us back to sanity. And I will tell you, I was in a lot of darkness and a lot of pain, a lot of confusion. Everything I thought that would make sense with my mind, it did not. Everything I tried failed. I tried to make people happy. It didn't work. And so I wanted to say that not until I came to the place of acknowledging God, that He was all powerful and that He wanted to show up in my life in this very detailed way, was when I began to see the light. And I want to share with you a little bit about how I got there today, but wanted to share that this is one of the most important decisions you could ever make. It's going from darkness to light, death to life. And I know some of you here may be really questioning God, and that's okay. You are allowed to question, but I want to encourage you, don't stop pressing in. Follow your questions, get your answers, ask people, keep watching, keep listening. And then others of you may have been Christians for a really long time. I fall into that category, and this video might be about learning to recommit yourself to acknowledging that God is more powerful than you. I had to do that in my life. This was a big recommitment, believing that God cared about this detail in my life and that I was holding on to it way too tightly, and I had to let go and acknowledge, no, God, you are the one who can do this. I cannot. All my ways have stopped working. I can't, but you can. And so I just had to look up and acknowledge that He was all powerful and He was going to help make all the fragmented pieces come together and make sense again. For that, I am so grateful. So today is all about hope, and I wanted to encourage you to allow God, invite Him in to your pain, to your struggle, and believe Him as the way forward, the way of healing. So I came to believe in a power that was greater than myself and that He would restore me back to sanity. I want to read to you Philippians 2:13 says, God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. So when you make this decision, He comes in full force with power. He wants to be with you in this journey, and He's going to give you what you need to be successful in believing Him. He says, Jeremiah 29:13 says, if you seek me with your whole heart, you will be found by me. And that's just such an encouragement to us to continue knocking and seeking Him, because He will answer. All it takes is for us to realize, hey, my ways have not worked. I know for me that this was a really big deal to acknowledge that my ways weren't working. We were married 7 years, and into that 7th year, everything seemed to just collapse. The patterns that we had been in were not sustainable. And one day it just all ruptured, and we were both left at, especially me, in a lot of confusion and a lot of darkness, and just like, what in the world happened with my life? And so I tried all of my things to be able to fix it. I tried to pray more. I tried to ask more questions. I tried to have more conversations. I tried to go to a million Bible studies, read a million devotionals, ask tons of people for help, keep being distracted. And all of the while, time just kept going on, and we really actually didn't deal with the issues at hand. We just both, isolated more, and I tried to control more and overanalyze more, and my part of the pattern was just getting worse. And so what we ended up doing was going to a New Life conference and signing up, and actually went to the second try. And what we learned was amazing. And I think that this, it was such a life-changing moment, honestly, for us both, but I'll speak for myself that I learned that, one, I needed to surrender my ways to God. Steve Arterburn shared the story about the prodigal son. And in the picture that Rembrandt had painted was the elder brother who was sitting here with his arms crossed. And I was like, wow, he just is talking to me. And I was thinking that I was the one without all the issues, because my issues weren't out in front for everyone to see. They were hidden, and they were deeply hidden. And so I had to surrender my ways of trying to manipulate and control and manage and fix it. And even especially just my pride that how could I even have a marriage that failed if I was a Christian? And until I was able to acknowledge those things, and that my ways were not working, and that I was in the wrong, that regardless of what he was doing, I had to give that up. I had to invite God into that space, and I had to recommit my life to him and say, God, I acknowledge you're powerful over my life, over my marriage, over the situation. And I'm trying to spin my wheels, trying to fix this thing, and it is not getting fixed. I'm just ending up back in the same place. Kind of like if you got lost in the woods and you just keep seeing that same tree. Like, that was me, and it lasted like a year. So that's a really long time to kind of like hope for something that wasn't really going to happen, and try all the things that you knew how to do, but it really didn't work until that moment where I was like, wow, I can't, but God can. And we both, thankfully, we're both saying we can't, but God can. And we just started out with little baby steps along the way. But one of the most important things is I worked on my side of the street and allowed God to work in my life. And once I gave up control, I felt like the floodgates opened, and I had so much more peace. And I believe that God was in control and loved me no matter what was going to happen with my marriage. And thankfully, we were able to take the things that we learned and apply them and go to counseling and work on them. And the biggest thing that I had to work on was that I realized that I was always trying to feel better and not feel anxious or guilty or bad. And in order to do that, I was trying to manage the way that people saw me. Some of you may know this as people pleasing. And what I learned from Kay and Milan Yerkovich was from attachment theory. And it was all about how a pleaser love style is always trying to, keep the peace and not have conflict and not have bad feelings and not upset people. And in the meantime, they're not being honest. They're not really showing up in the relationship and saying the things that need to be said. And I realized that I had a big problem. And as I looked back, I saw it in my relationships, and it just really erupted in my marriage, because you really can't hide in marriage. So I decided that I need to seek God's approval alone, and that I wanted to be honest, and I wanted to learn to manage my anxiety and go to him. And as I was working on my part of the pattern, Brian, my husband, was working on his, and eventually we were able to come back together. But we had to acknowledge that God was first. And he wants to do impossible things in our life. And in the meantime, that he's going to be with us along the way. And I wanted to encourage you and read a verse. Romans 5:3-5 says, not only so, but we glory in our sufferings, because we know suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that he gave us. So not only is he going to lead and guide us with his light on his path, but he's going to bring down his Holy Spirit. He brought Jesus to this earth to be with us. And now we have the Holy Spirit to comfort us in our sadness, in our pain, in our anxiety, in our anger, in our loneliness. He's going to hold us while we're grieving terrible things. He's going to be with us and show us the way and not leave us alone. And that's the hope, because we're going to grow through that, and that's going to strengthen our faith, and that we're going to be able to help strengthen others as well. The most important thing, is to know where to turn. The disciples were in the storm on the boat, and they woke up and they were like, Jesus, please help us. Even if it's just that, even if it's like that small mustard seed of faith, like asking him for help, that's all he's looking for, because he lights our path. He says, thy word in the Psalms, it says, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And all we need to do is take that one step forward, one step at a time. And he promises to be there for us. Some encouragement to you of some biblical characters that have encouraged me along the way. Hebrews 11, we've got a whole litany of wonderful examples of faith, but I wanted to talk about Ruth and how she amazes me through her grief. She was able to take a big risk of faith, follow her mother-in-law out of her old country into a new one. And sometimes we just need to forsake the old and try something new. And that's what she did. And if she hadn't done that and been brave, Jesus would not even have been here today, so her story is amazing. And then also, or God would have had to use somebody else besides her, but she got to be a big part of a small part of a cool story. And then we've got Esther, who was probably, I would have been terrified if I was her, being asked to save a whole people group. She, instead of relying on her own ways, she fasted, she prayed, she asked others to, she trusted God, and she did it with fear and trembling, and I really respect her. And because of her, a whole nation was saved. And then we've got Mary. She is amazing as a recovering pleaser type person, people pleaser. I would be terrified to be Mary, who's pregnant and nobody knows the story. Why? She just had this beautiful childlike faith and said, yes, God. And God loves that childlike faith, and sometimes we just need to realize that it is that simple. It's a decision. It's a big risk, but really the risk is to not. If we don't trust him, we're going to stay in darkness. We're going to stay in chaos. We're going to stay circling in the woods. And we're never really going to find that sanity, that peace, that hope that we're looking for. So just want to encourage you guys today, as I've lived it in my own life and seeing God do amazing things. He really does do impossible things, that he wants to partner with us. He wants us to grow and become full of character so that our hope can be made complete in him. And what a cool thing it is to be able to work together with God. But first, we need to make that decision to believe. So I hope this was an encouragement to you today to take that step and trust a God bigger than yourself that can restore you to sanity and give you all the hope that you could ever dream of. Thank you so much for joining us.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back. Well, maybe you've been thinking like Alena, you don't have a problem. Well, when we're fully ready to surrender to God's power, we're ready to do whatever we need to do for our future. And that means accept that we have a problem. Let's continue to explore step 2.
I have come to believe that a power, God, greater than myself can restore me back to sanity. So today it's just about making sure that we can stay on track with this step. The step is awesome because it's just this decision to trust God, who is outside of us, to bring us hope and redemption and healing and a path forward. But there are so many things that could try to trip us up and get in the way. So today I want to talk about 5 things to stop doing to make sure that you don't fall backwards, and 5 things to start doing that will give you support and encouragement to move forward with this step. Sometimes it's hard to know when you're actually done this step, but I think that a good rule of thumb is to say that there's 2 parts, I believe, to this step. One is that you've made this decision to trust an all-powerful God, to be the one that you go to in times of trouble. And if you find yourself continually going back to him every time something happens, you know you're on track with this step every day, because every day it's a decision to trust him. We trust him with our hearts for eternity, but we also trust him surrendering to him every single day and acknowledging that he is the one who is all powerful, in all control, and he is our hope. So it's kind of twofold, but if you find yourself going back to him all the time, then you know that you're on the right track with this step. So the first thing I wanted to talk about might seem a little bit obvious, but we want to make sure that we stop relying on our old ways, our own self, going back to some of those coping patterns that we used to use, and start really making sure that we place our trust fully and completely in God. So I have some verses here that I'll read, but I just wanted to share that relying on ourselves is only going to prolong our healing. Basically, anything that we use to cope, drugs, alcohol, sex, the clique, food. For me, it's food, the approval of others, just doing anything and everything to avoid pain, really. It's going to prolong our healing. And when we do that, we're just kind of band-aiding what is really going on. Unfortunately, it just holds us back from a really full life. So I'm going to read a quick verse to you. It's from Jeremiah 6:14. It says, "They offer superficial treatments for my people's mortal wound. They give assurance of peace where there is no peace." And basically that's saying that there really is a solution to our pain and our struggle, and his name is Jesus. And the way we find him is asking and surrendering to him and to the Lord to give us all hope. But in the meantime, these things that we think are going to heal us never do. And the people that we go to for help don't seem to really help us. So it's really important to realize that these are just band-aid solutions. So you're going to be tempted to go backwards to these things because it's really hard to tolerate hard emotions. And sometimes, even though we believe in God, it's hard to see him and to feel him. And we're going to get into the details about how to make sure that your faith in him can be strengthened. So the first way you can do that is to really spend time in his word, spend time going to church, spend time in prayer and worship, surrounding yourself with people who are full of faith, who love him and can encourage you in your faith and give you something to do when you're bored. It's really important that you can be able to do that. I'm going to just share a verse, Ephesians 2:8. It says, For it's by grace you have been saved through faith and not from yourselves. So as we rely on God, we want to make that a daily practice. There's a beautiful prayer by John Eldridge that he has shared, and it's similar to the Serenity Prayer, actually. And it says, Jesus, I give everyone and everything to you. And I find that to be very helpful, just like the Serenity Prayer in the mornings when I wake up. That really recenters my focus. So in preventing from falling backwards, these are some things that you can do to move forwards. So the second thing I wanted to share with you was to stop being stuck in your grief and your trauma and start seeking true healing. Start going to counseling in order to get well and move through your pain. There's so much in life that happens, and as a counselor, I've sat with so many people and heard their stories, and I believe that there's a lot of unresolved grief in people's lives. There's so many disappointments, so many losses. We've expected each other to move on when we're not ready. And it's really important that you have a place where you can be heard and validated and allow that pain to move through your body, through your emotions, into somebody else, into God, into just allowing that energy to get out. so that you can find resolution and healing is really, really important, because it can be what holds you back from truly trusting God, because you have been hurt. And maybe you have difficulty trusting. So it's a really important step to begin to heal the pain and help your body feel safe again. Some things that you can do to move through your pain quicker is to call 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and they can give you name and numbers of counselors in your area who can meet with you, who can help you and understand what you've been going through. I believe that this is one of the key ways in order to keep lasting healing. Also, there's plenty of websites that you can call that have there's lists of trauma-informed therapists. So it's really important to stop going in circles with your pain and start having it move forward. It's always important to just take that first step to begin to find the right person to help you process through that pain and acknowledge that maybe you do have some things that are holding you back that are a little bit deeper than what's on the surface, and whatever you've been using to cope was covering up for something down below. So it's always helpful to think about it that way and to move forward in your healing journey. Number 3, stop staying isolated and start getting into community. So one of the biggest reasons why people fail with this step is that they stop being part of a supportive and loving faith-based community. They start isolating, thinking they can do things on their own. And also on the flip side, there's other people who are saying, it's just me and God and we got this. And so they don't let anybody else in. And God gave us the body of believers to help encourage us and maybe share some things that we may not have thought of before. Ephesians 4:9 says, 2 are better than one, as they have good reward for their toil. For if one falls down, the other one can lift the other up. So we're here to encourage one another and help us to stay strong. So when you're in isolation, there's none of that. Hebrews 12:2 says, since we're surrounded by such a big cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles us. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So the more we're around, the top 5 people that we're around, we become like. So just remember that when you're starting to get discouraged, ask yourself, who am I hanging around? Maybe I need to get around some people who are full of faith and go out and find them. And that leads me to some of these solutions. We need to hear those stories of faith, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's a speaker meeting or anything. Make sure you're meeting with somebody weekly who's encouraging you in your faith. A 10-12-step recovery. Go to newlife.com and look up life recovery groups. Go to Celebrate Recovery. Find a grief group. Find any kind of a church group. Make sure the people that are understanding and kind and supportive, but Bible studies, MOPS groups, there's all kinds of groups that you can meet to stay accountable and to stay encouraged. You want to find people who are invested in their healing. Even going to workout classes is great, because these people want to push their bodies and they're meeting, and you can just join them and it's only going to help you. So remember, stop being in isolation and start getting out into community. Number 4, stop believing negative thoughts and start challenging them with God's truth. We go in the direction of our strongest thoughts, and they lie to us all the time. So as we're trying to stay strong in the second step, there's going to be doubts and lies that come our way, reminders of our past, doubts about God, temptations to rely on ourselves. So it's very important to use the skill that God gave us and almost step outside of our thinking and observe our thoughts. What are we really thinking, and where is it leading us? This is one of the biggest things that can hold us back in step 2. And some of the things that we can do is just tell ourselves the truth. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed by the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Another verse is 2 Corinthians 10:5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive into obedience with Christ. So it's really important to capture our thoughts, because some of us may be even thinking about the thing we want to do, right? I want to eat that chocolate or ice cream or pizza. And we think about it all day until we get it, or that drink, or that click, or that affirmation from someone. It can make us make decisions that we would never make. But if we start to challenge our thoughts and take our thoughts captive, we will stop that dead in its tracks. We got to tell ourselves the truth about God and kind of get in the fight against our thoughts. Huge, 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 huge. This one's a big one for so many of us. I know definitely for me. I had to remind myself in my situation, in my marriage, that I was responsible for my side of the street. I had to trust God, and I had to work on the parts that I had to work on me, and that God was going to take care of me no matter what. And I think that was the biggest thing that helped me, is that I believe that God was out for my good and he wasn't going to let me be in a bad situation where there was no way out. And the last thing I wanted to say to stop doing was stop ignoring your questions and start leaning in for answers. Many of us struggle with step 2 because we're not uncertain about God. Maybe we've learned about him through a church that wasn't necessarily perfect, or a parent who wasn't perfect, or even a spouse. And we've begun to see God through a different lens that maybe it's not who he really is. So, or maybe we've been hurt and we don't trust well. So it's important to go back and learn about who is God really? What does he say? And kind of approach it with a clean slate, because these doubts and this mistrust can really get in the way of fully embracing step 2 for every single thing, and believing that God's in the details and that he cares. It's a whole new world when you get to know God in a new way. He's full of love and he's full of truth, and figuring out the balance of that is something a lot of people don't quite understand, but he's a loving God and he's a good God. Psalm 145 says, "The Lord is near to all who call upon him, to all who call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desires of those who fear him. He will hear their cry and save them." So he is there for us. Some things that you can do. If you've got some questions, sit down with your pastor, sit down with your recovery group and ask questions to them. Get around some people who have been in your shoes but also have found their faith. Pray, ask God. He will show himself to you. I know at my church there's something called Starting Point, where it's a place where you can come and ask your questions in a non-judgmental environment, and people will sit down with you and engage you and your questions. And then I know for myself in the counseling office, I have people asking me questions about God all the time, and I love that because we're just trying to understand him. So super important to be able to know what to look out for with this stuff, what could be coming up in the way, and what you could be doing in the meantime to be preventative and get in front of whatever thing that could happen to throw you off course. I hope this was encouraging to you, and just to know that we all need support with this step. I know for me, I had the help of a supportive community. I was close with the Lord, but some of the things that I was missing was the therapy aspect of learning to say what was going on in my own heart and mind, learn to tolerate someone else's emotions, and to use boundaries as a tool. I had no idea about any of these things, but when I went and learned about it, I was able to integrate that with what was going on, and it really helped me understand what I needed to do for my part of the pattern in order to help save my marriage. So it was God who did it, not me, and I had to continue to acknowledge that every single day. I hope some of this can help equip and encourage you toward hope, help, and healing.
Welcome back again. Well, as Alena said, you aren't alone in the journey. God is with you as you surrender and trust God with your life, more and more of your life every day. Now, if that's difficult, if you need some help with that, we want to help you. Let us know. Call us. Tell us you need some help. Maybe we can get you right into a great life recovery group that helps you with the process of surrender. And remember, surrender could be that emotional time where you come to the end of yourself, or the decision to just comply. We're going to see you next time right here. God bless you, and thank you for watching Life Recovery Today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.